Hi everyone, welcome to the mid-year book tag. That's the one. I don't have a reading goal this year because I didn't want to pressure myself into reading a certain number of books, but I have read over 109 books this year, mainly because a lot of them are comics, and so that's why it's a lot of numbers. The first question is the best book I've read so far in 2020. Harleen is one of my 5-star reads this year. I think this is the third time I've talked about this comic on YouTube, and I don't want to talk about it too much. I would say that this decade is when writers started going away from the idea that Harley is just the Joker's quirky girlfriend. And Harley is more than that. She is a human being, she has her own identity. And so I'm really happy that this comic exists because I just think they did a really wonderful job writing her origin story. The best sequel I've read so far is Jade More. My answer is not Jade More just because it is the only sequel I've read this year, but it's also a very good book. I'm really loving it. I haven't even finished it yet. I am going to be talking about the Greenbone Saga for another question, so I will elaborate on this series a little later. A new release I haven't read yet, but want to. Mexican Gothic. I don't know much about this book other than it is historical fiction, and it's adult fiction, and it is horror. And my friend Andrea and I really love horror, and she has told me some really cool things about it, and so I'm just expecting like horror and blood and gore. I love horror. I love horror in TV shows and in movies, and I need to broaden my interests to horror novels, and so I'm really excited to read Mexican Gothic. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. The Burning God, obviously. That is the third and final book of the Poppy War series, which is my favorite series, which I talk about all the time, so I'm not going to talk about it again in this video. If you have not heard me talk about the Poppy War before, it is high fantasy, it is Chinese inspired. The main character is a dark-skinned Asian, which I have not seen that many dark-skinned Asians in fiction. There's gods, there's war, there's morally gray characters. Biggest disappointment of this year. Oh my god, I feel like I can talk about this for so long. Okay, first, I want to say Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is my favorite TV show, and it took me like, I don't know, 8 years to finally pick up the book. I don't wanna get into it too much. But let me just say that the series is different from the books. And no, I'm not talking about like, you know, season 7 and 8, which are widely known as very terrible seasons. I'm talking about the actual characters. In the series, they are morally gray, sure, but they're also still likable. In the books, however, nobody is likable at all. And there's like no redeemable qualities. Everyone is a rapist, everyone is a pedophile. I absolutely hate everybody. Content doesn't always have to have characters that are likable. However, it was just, as a fan, my soul was crushed when I realized all my favorite characters were pedophiles and rapists and just disgusting human beings. The other series that biggest disappointment of my life. Let me just pitch this to you, okay? And you'll see the potential this series has. Imagine a super secret facility where superheroes can remain anonymous and receive therapy for all the PTSD, depression, and other illnesses they have accumulated throughout their career as a superhero. That sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But then something very, very bad goes wrong and they all end up dead. And so now it's a mystery. The mystery aspect, it's fine. I was just personally looking forward to the therapy part of this story. Not only was the mystery terrible because there was actually no mystery, it was just, ooh, who killed the people? And then the two survivors looking for evidence, but actually at the end of the story, it was just like, oh, actually they found the evidence off screen, you guys just didn't see it. The therapy part, which I was really looking forward to, is so bad. It is completely skimmed over, and Tom King, the writer, was basically just like, let's make mental illness quirky and only talk about it for each character in one panel, one singular image. You are using mental illness and trauma as a way to be like, ooh, what if they had this fear? What if this made them insecure? Blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, it was nothing. It was nothing. This was nothing. There was no mental illness stuff in this comic at all. Tom King gave me nothing, and I'm never going to forgive him for that because the premise of this comic was so good. Ugh. 3 other points I'm gonna touch on really briefly. Harley Quinn, who was one of the survivors of this sanctuary, she easily beat Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. She has no powers. She doesn't... I don't know how that was possible. Second of all, Lois Lane, a reporter, exposed these documents from the hospital to the public because it was a slow news day. That was an insult to Lois Lane's character. She literally exposed all these private documents because what? There was nothing to report about? Honey. Third, this series, the art was so beautiful, and I'm so mad about that. Bad comics do not deserve good art. Okay, I'm done talking about it. I don't want to talk about Heroes in Crisis anymore. The biggest surprise of 2020. The Monster of Ellen Haven. That book was on and off my TBR for a while, and then I saw like a post and I was like, you know what, maybe I will give it a shot. So I read it and I really loved it. I love the author's writing style. The story was little, but the writing style, oh my god, I was just obsessed. Doom Patrol by Gerard Way was surprisingly very good. I would not recommend it to anybody, to be honest. I would only recommend it if you have watched the TV series Doom Patrol, because you're already familiar with some of the characters and you're familiar with the style that it's written and the humor and it's just weirdness. And also the Greenbone Saga. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised that I like them this much. This took me a very long time to read. There's so many terms in this book that the author made up for the world that it takes place in. It made it very difficult for me to process information. There's so much about like other countries and so much history, and my brain was just like, oh my god, too much information. But I got through it and I was like, okay, this is a pretty decent series. And I moved on. But then I read the second book, right? And I was reading it. I was like, wait a second. I kind of fucking love these characters. This is a 3-star read, and I think this is going to be a 4-star read. 3 stars doesn't necessarily mean bad to me. I just think there's a lot lacking in it. And there were some problems I had with the ending. But overall, I think it's a really great series. There's so many things I want to say about Jade More. And the way that it's... oh my god. Okay, but it's spoilers, so I can't. But let me just say. Siblings. They're all like in their 30s. Early to late 30s. Except for the youngest sibling. Oh my god, the dynamics of each character, like their relationships with each other, I just, ugh. Okay, literally 2 videos after I recorded that video, I finished Jade More, and I just want to say that it is a 5-star read, and I absolutely love it. I want to talk about it properly, but I feel like this video isn't the right place to give a review for the book, but I just want to say this book is fantastic and I totally recommend the series. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? My new favorite author is, he is the writer and the artist of Harleen. Talent. I mean, I've only read Harleen, but just based on how much they understood this character and how sensitive they were about being a victim to abuse, I was just like, I kind of like you, dude. And there's not a lot of information, but supposedly this author is going to be doing a sequel to Harleen, except it's going to be about Poison Ivy. So it's not going to be an origin story, but I'm still very excited to read it. Newest favorite character. Okay, well, Kalan from the Greenbone Saga. There's just that eldest sibling solidarity between me and him. And, you know, he suffered so much, and just the weight of being an older sibling, you know, I just, oh man, he's beautiful. Also the Riddler that popped up this year, my obsession with the Riddler. It didn't start with a comic. It started with the Batman Arkham gaming series. He's so stupid. He's just a little nerd who puts riddles around everywhere and begs the Batman for attention, like the little he is. He just wants attention. He's so stupid. He's so stupid. I mean, okay, he is also like a murderer. I've been reading some of the stupidest comics just for some Riddler crumbs. Let me just say, some of them are from Tom King, the writer for Heroes in Crisis. So that already tells you what my Riddler content is like. Book that made me cry. I didn't cry on the outside, but like I cried on the inside. The Deep is an adult fantasy novella about pregnant African women who were tossed from slave ships, and their babies were born with the ability to live underwater. And this whole story is about how these beings and their pain and trauma that they have to live with from their past and how they handle it. It didn't make me cry, but there was definitely a lot of moments in the book where it was just like, it hit me hard. A book that made me happy. I want to say Pacific Rim, but that's like totally unfair because it's a novelization of the movie, and the movie is one of my favorite movies, so like obviously it was gonna make me happy. But my real answer is Justice League 8. It is a fan-made comic, and it's basically just fan service. It is about the Justice League and other DC characters if they were 8 years old and going to school together. And I just think it's so adorable, and it's just so happy. It's a little exaggerated and out of character sometimes, but you know, it's just for fun. It's fan-made. It's whatever. I love it. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So my answer is gonna be Harleen. Once again, I will not shut up about how gorgeous this cover is. I love this cover. I think it's brilliant. My other beautiful cover for this year is Watchmen. I have been a Watchmen fan since I was a kid. It was my first comic book superhero movie that I've seen. I mean, God, what a way to be introduced into superheroes, you know? And so I'm really happy to finally have this on my shelf. I mean, this is literally a classic and iconic, and I love the lettering, how simple it is, but it pops out. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Black Sun was one of the ARCs that was sent to me. Since it's one of my highly anticipated reads, I really want to make sure I read it this year. I also really want to read the first original Doom Patrol by Grant Morrison. I want to read the 5th season. This is going to be my 4th or 5th time trying to read the 5th season, so I'm really hoping that this time I will be able to get through it. Mexican Gothic, which I mentioned before, and Injustice 2, because I finished Injustice towards the end of 2019 and I have yet to pick up the continuation of the series. Well, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to stay safe and wear a mask.
Okay, so I just finished the book. It took me like, I don't even know how many days, but I just finished it, and it's so stressful at times, but like, I recommend this book.
What are you doing?
The protagonist of the story is very troubled at times, but you know, at the end, they overcome it.
Overcome what?
Overcome their struggles. And then they deal with some conflict. And then here comes the soundtrack. This is the song. This is the part of the song where... This is the part of the song where the book, not movie, where the book goes to the deep part. That means that they've hit rock bottom.
Wow.
But they get out. They ascend.
So
They died. Well, they got out of the struggle. It's about a war. Laid with Idulal.
Jay!
I know. Idudge.
Oh, now you want to read the back. You should have done that first so you can make a fake summary.
No.
I'm being bothered by children. I can't record. Oh my god. Go away.